Good afternoon. I'm Tom Walla. I'm a professor of biology here at Colorado Mesa University. And I am a tropical ecologist, and I do my work in the upper Amazon basin of Ecuador. And I'm interested in caterpillars. And today, I'm going to talk to you about 3 surprises that have occurred to me while working on caterpillars in the tropics. The first 2 deal with data, and the third one deals with extraordinary experiences. The caterpillar that you see here will spend its life eating leaves. During its lifetime, as a group, caterpillars will consume massive quantities of rainforest foliage. Organisms must control these caterpillars, and they do. There are organisms that keep them in check, keep their populations from growing to such a level that they could conceivably consume all of the vegetation on Earth and leave us all starving. So my work is an inventory of species interactions that looks at the natural enemies, we call them parasitoids, that attack these caterpillars and kill them. A parasitoid wasp is an organism that at the end of the female's abdomen, she has a needle-like egg-laying device. She uses this device to inject into the body of a caterpillar her small egg that will hatch into a maggot that will grow slowly inside the living caterpillar, consuming first the fat bodies and the non-essential organs, and later the most essential organs and the entire interior of this caterpillar. At some point, it will tear through the body wall and burst out onto the rainforest scene and pupate somewhere nearby the dead corpse of the hapless caterpillar. A great diversity of these organisms exist. At the bottom, 40, 50, or even 60 of these parasitoid larvae are emerging simultaneously from the still writhing body of a living caterpillar. At the top, another caterpillar has been taken, and on the inside is the pupae of the parasitoid, and it has retained the dead skin of the caterpillar as a mummy-like costume to disguise itself from enemies as a natural living caterpillar. So even in this bizarre life cycle, there are surprises. And when we first witnessed this particular parasitoid, we thought, oh, this parasitoid is just another parasitoid attacking a caterpillar. But it kept stinging and stinging and stinging. And why does it sting so many times? And Scott Shaw from the University of Wyoming, who's one of our collaborators, discovered that it was not just stinging the caterpillar, but it was in fact a hyperparasitoid. And this is an organism who puts its eggs inside another parasitoid inside the caterpillar. And what it does in this case is to start at the back of the caterpillar and sting through the larvae of the caterpillar's skin down to the parasitoid inside and pokes it. And the little parasitoid wriggles towards the head capsule of the larvae. And as it does, the wasp follows it, poking it all the way, herding it within the body cavity until it finally pins it against the head capsule, where it can make a solid insertion of its egg into the parasitoid's larvae. But how many of these caterpillars actually die at the hands or the mouths, so to speak, of parasitoids? And that's what we seek to measure, and to do that we have to collect lots of caterpillars. We grow them up, and we look to see how many of the ones that we have collected have parasitoids inside. And part of this begins with what I call fun collecting. Put on a pair of rubber boots, get an umbrella, wander into the rainforest, and you are waiting to discover a marvelous menagerie of caterpillars crawling all over the forest. When you grow them up, 50,000 caterpillars later, we can estimate that about 25% of those have already been parasitized before they were collected. But this was not enough for the critics, and it took big data science, the hard stuff, to find more information, because they said, you know, you're collecting all the pretty caterpillars. What about the ones that aren't so pretty, the little ones? And what about their eggs? Don't they have parasitoids inside them as well? And they do, and so we send an army of students and volunteers and workers. Here you see a CMU student crawling through the rainforest, turning over every leaf in a 10-meter diameter plot where we count every caterpillar, every egg, every pupae, everything, and every leaf identified into the thousands of leaves in that area and quantitatively measure all the organisms that live in there. And we found when we did this that our parasitoid rate jumped, it doubled, to 50% of all of the eggs and larvae collected were actually already parasitized by the time that we found them. And so it turns out that sometimes this sort of quantitative big data sampling teaches us things that were not obvious at first. Other tropical surprises are more experiential in nature, and this particular one occurs as a result of a wound that will not heal in the tropics, and close inspection of the wound shows that there's something living in there. And this could be a botfly. I have seen a number of them. They are a fly who captures, well, before I tell you the whole story, I'll tell you, nobody's going to die here. Botflies are not parasitoids. They are, in fact, parasites. And so they use the flesh of the organism they live on, but they don't typically kill their host. And this is a careful distinction between a parasitoid and a parasite, and one that makes one an experience and the other a data point. In this case, a botfly will grab a mosquito flying through the forest, and it will stick onto its belly its own small larvae glued on to the underside of a hapless mosquito that's then released into the forest like a heat-seeking missile to find an organism from which to suck blood. And once it gets there, it lays down to have its blood meal on the skin, and the larvae leaps off, feeling the heat of the body, and crawls under the skin. And here you see the very tip of one poking out. Months later, growing up, you can see the body of a complete botfly larvae ready to exit and pupate on the outside. Harold Greene wears the badge of courage for rearing his own botfly in his arm. And in this case, Harold had a great experience to take home and quite a surprise to think about. The hole closed within about 15 minutes until it was almost no longer recognizable, and the botfly wriggled off to pupate and make an adult fly. We continue to search for mysteries and surprises in the tropical rainforest, and I'd like to thank the National Science Foundation, the Sakamoto Higher Education Foundation for funding students, and of course my collaborators in the parasitoids and caterpillars of the Eastern Andes and the Amazon. Thank you.